background story where they see a grey figure?
The man who saw the grey figure in the original, like the background story, he done research to find out there was a vampire there. But my narrative is based on a group of teenagers who want to join his vampire hunt. So he decided on Friday the 13th they would go search the grave to see if they could find the man. And so on the way, they're taken for a shortcut, and the vampire that I based my narrative on, she was also like rumoured to be buried in the same place as the original Highgate vampire.
Okay, so I suppose if you put it that way, it makes it more exciting for them because they don't see something, they're kind of causing trouble as they're young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why are you going to look authentic costumes for the actors?
Well, I was thinking about looking on maybe online at eBay or somewhere like that to see.
Yeah, because for the kids it's just a 70s clothes, but you said that the vampire will be dressed in like this old-fashioned gown.
Yeah, I was just going to have a look at like online and see if I can find it. Then I was even thinking like maybe to try and find like an old-fashioned like wedding dress, like maybe in a charity shop or somewhere like that, and try and just use that as an old-fashioned sort of, because white will sort of represent that she's a supernatural being.
And you know, because obviously the story, Highgate Cemetery is famous,
Yeah.
and I think you can get tours there. If you can't film there, have you got a backup location?
I researched into it and you can't film at the graveyard, but I was thinking just to set it within the field because they don't actually reach the cemetery, even though they wanted to go there. They took a shortcut and they found themselves lost in this field. But I'm going to try, I don't know if there's any graveyards which you can film, but I'm going to have to look into somewhere and maybe try and get a few shots to like link it in. And maybe just go to Highgate and film around the area.
Yeah. Or maybe just like, you know, the title on the outside so at least you have parts of it in the trailer.
I was thinking maybe like just to film like bits of like Highgate tube station or something like that. Maybe have them walking out there or something.
Yeah. So it represents them near there and on the way.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea, and I think that it's original, but I'm a little bit concerned about how successfully you're going to pull this off. You know, in terms of you've got two quite large challenges there. The first one is the 1970s element, having to get the mise en scène right and make that authentic, and then you've got this other element which is the vampire and making that vampire look kind of authentic and scary. And then also another thing is, it says here that she is now mortal, blah blah blah. They are trapped in the field as they attempt to escape from her clutches. What's actually going to happen in the field? Because you can't have it just that, you know, she's chasing them. There needs to be more, doesn't there?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to be a bit like kind of Scooby-Doo, you know, with them kind of running off and someone kind of chasing them.
Because she has like some kind of weakness, because he says she's immortal. There has to be some way to defeat her.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, dog and stuff like that.
And if you film it in a field, the only focus is going to be on them. So you have to make it look right. Because if you filmed, I don't know, say for example, you filmed a fight in a busy area.
Yeah.
Say if, obviously, because when we film a fight, it would be a real one, the background of it would be also distracting, but because the focus is going to be on them, you have to make sure it looks right.
Yeah. I was thinking just to show like maybe how the vampire's past, so like maybe show her like within her home and like her past story of her getting sort of taunted and stuff like that, and then maybe just do a few images of them before they actually go on the vampire hunt. I was thinking to film maybe bits, and my friend, she lives in a pub, and it's quite old-fashioned, like really old-fashioned decoration and everything, like downstairs. Whereas we can maybe just have them sitting in the pub together and planning like, oh, we're going to go do this, and maybe like decorate one room in my house, because my rooms are like quite plain, like all the walls are just white. So maybe just get like a couple of 70s style things and just put it in the dining room and just like literally film them like looking through newspaper articles and talking about it with each other.
And I think it's really, I really like the idea of the link to a legend. I think that's really good, but it's just, I think it's going to be very, very challenging to achieve this. I mean, if you thought of keeping with the idea of a legend, but maybe having something, I mean, as to whether it's a vampire or not, but having the idea of maybe a modern day group of teenagers who are investigating this legend or myth, and they go to investigate and things will go disastrously wrong, that kind of thing. So it kind of removes that pressure, at least of the 1970s. And also with vampire, it's actually a subgenre within itself. It's actually a separate subgenre to supernatural. Vampiric horrors are a subgenre by themselves. So you've got a whole other load of conventions that you're going to have to think about introducing. So I don't know. I would be very, very careful with this one. Please don't think that I'm criticising it. I just want you to have the best possible shot as you can have to make it professional and effective. And I think that some of these things could stop that from happening.
Yeah, because if they're young, then you could sort of pretend that they may be very interested in history and they have looked upon this topic in their lessons, and obviously they've found that now it's like 42 years later since this has happened, or however long it is, and no one has actually found any clues as to what's happened. So in their summer or maybe October half term, they decided to go and explore, and then that means that your surroundings will be less hard for you to pull off.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe just set it wasn't daytime, so maybe just have, like maybe their parents might have gone and witnessed it or been alive at that time, and maybe they're the ones who like passed on the article. But I think that's quite a good idea.
And it's easier for you to show them like researching it.
Yeah.
So say if you showed them planning it, say in the 1970s, I'm not sure they might have used a map. Whereas if you say in modern day, you could show them reading up directions on like the internet or something, for example.
Why don't you make it that this vampire hunt really happened, that so many years ago these people went on this vampire hunt and that they were never seen again. In history, these kids, like Tara said, they find out about it, they're really interested, so they go back to this location to try and find out what happened to these people, and that they experience kind of strange things happening, weird events, because it's the ghosts, the spirits of those people who went missing in the ghost hunt. And then it's supernatural, and it doesn't involve having to have somebody dressed in white dress pretending to be a vampire.
So do you think
something like
do you
that?
think I should not have like anything like the vampire element in the trailer?
Yeah, because it worries me, because with vampires, it's just such a separate entity, and you're going to have to represent that through mise en scène. I think that's going to be tricky. I would go for something like what I've just said, so it becomes supernatural.
You could set it on, like, you could say, instead of like them researching up, it could be like the day of the anniversary when it happened.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have the background story, you have the people that went there, and the people that went there and then you never see again, and then they go there, and the people that have never seen again end up basically haunting them. Is what
That's the kind of impression you get when strange things are happening.
that is.
A bit like similar to something like Grave Encounters, when they go to the psychiatric ward, it's the ghosts of the kind of, you know, the ex-patients and so on, the haunting. It's like that's going to be the threat, it's going to be the presence.
Do you think how do you think I should show like the kids then who like the supernatural beings? Then do you think I should like show them on the film.
Do we need to show, do you mean like the original ghost
The
hunter,
original
the original
ghost
vampires?
yeah.
So I don't think we necessarily need to show them. Just as long as you show some signifier that this event happened, you know, 30 or however many years ago,
Okay.
30, 40 years ago, as long as, because I think, you know, with these films that do have this kind of narrative with the things being investigated, like the Blair Witch Project, Brave Encounters, we don't actually see the original people who become the ghosts, do we? We just know that there are presence there, here and now.
I think as well, if you had obviously the school children, that you should have at least 3 of them. But if you stick with if you decide between 2 ideas, if your original idea, you have to do more research on how you want to make their clothing look the 70s and relevant film first.
Yeah.
But just as a kind of, before we finish this pitch, what is the general feeling that Anna should go with the original idea or with the new idea of it being a group of students, history students who are going to investigate the disappearance of these people and that they are the haunted presence? What's the general consensus?
The new idea, as long as you know what type of actors you're going to use.
That's the only difficulty, because if I use actors for the new idea, then I'll have to go to bring them to school and probably have to use people from the school to film it.
Or unless you had older actors, which you would be able to get, because send that they're university students, which would make the film more interesting because they have more skills of looking at it and having less scared.
More to be interested in it as well.
It's just about location.
Project for university and the history of the streets.
Because if you had school children, they'd probably think, oh, something's clearly going to go wrong. Because if you have more mature actors, it might work better.
Would a group of school students be that passionate about it unless they were doing it for larks, you know, just to mess around? But a group of university students might be that engaged with the topic that they might feel inclined to go and investigate further. I think that could work because then it keeps the key idea of your narrative. It just makes it a little bit more accessible and easier to pull off. Well done. It's really interesting what you presented to us, all that research you've done into the Highgate vampire. Really, really